Hello, my name is Yasir Tunçer. I am the co-founder and CEO of MaestroHub, and we help hundreds of companies on their digital transformation. Today, we are going to talk about one of the really critical, close to my heart group, financial controllers, financial directors, chief financial officers. When we talk about digital transformation, we usually have a really good resonance with this kind of group. What they do, how they operate, and what they try to achieve is really close to what digital transformation means at the core. For a financial officer, you see machines running, costs rising, but you cannot tell which line is burning money and which one is actually printing it. The numbers tell a story which is not really perfect. Piece of the puzzle comes maybe in real time, but the complete story actually comes at the end of the quarter or at the end of the month. Finance is responsible for the past while operations lives in the present. The decisions are made in real time, but the outcomes are measured, consolidated after all of those happened. And finance is usually responsible for consolidating and reporting rather than giving a strategic direction for the company. The value controllers that we call those actually safeguards profitability, ensures every dollar spent produces measurable return. They turn transformation into math for the manufacturer. The raw material comes in, process goes on, and the output is a product or service for the related company. The transformation is where the losses happen. And protecting margins while enabling modernization is a really hard challenge. You need to be able to support where you can improve the operational excellence of the process, which is completely a different responsibility for operations team. However, you are measured with the outcomes someone else did. Digital transformation is connecting all of the data sources across the value chain through the life cycle of the product so you can see improvement opportunities that were not even visible for you before. So make digital transformation for a financial controller is making digital transformation financially transparent, predictable, and defensible. Any investment that you make should be able to calculate it in real time with the return on investment, which is really hard to quantify. What the value controller are responsible, mostly they are managing budgeting, ROI validation, cash flow forecasting, positioning of the cash, FX positioning, hedging some of the risks. Uh, every technology or efficiency claim eventually lands on their table. Whatever is going to be an investment should be go through the budgeting purpose of the company. They are allocating some resources for transformation of the company, which at the end of the day is the blood of the company. Cash is the blood of the company. The more you have, the healthier the organization becomes. So increasing the profitability, forecast accuracy, cost efficiency, board confidence is what success looks like for a value controller. Their usually core KPIs are return on investments percentage, payback period, operational OPEX cost reduction, cost per unit, cash flow stability, risk calculations. All of those are different aspects of the business. Basically, finance is the outcome of taking some positioning against what you believe is going to happen, the likelihood of those, and you assume certain performance from operations, or you assume certain volatility in the market, you assume certain investment will have a positive return on the business. You would like to shorten that payback period. Basically, you would like to have, if possible, a cash flow positive investment from day one without paying anything while you are sharing what you are earning, like a revenue share model. On the other hand, most of the financial controllers are in today world are stuck in an environment where they are usually consolidating different data sources like Excels, getting some technological tools for budgeting, analyzing those in actuals at the end of the month, and the technology is not actually helping them to do their business, to do their job better, while they are usually the ones responsible for allocating those. A confidence on their investment will have a positive payback period. Their life, a typical day for a financial controller. Uh, they have a lot of people from accounting, from uh, other indirect resources like from procurement, from operations, where they need to collaborate. They try to solve problems by consolidating numbers in Excel files, in some of them in dashboards, but constant reconciliation because the cost structure of the business is not derived from one area. Operations has material costs, direct labor cost, utilities cost, maintenance cost, where the engineering team has R&D cost, selling general administration cost, logistic cost, rental costs, amortization. All of those need to be consolidated in a way where you have tens of thousands of different products, SKUs. You need to be able to get to the truth where you can tell the story behind the numbers, what actually we aimed as a budget, what we supposed to have as a unit cost versus what actually happened. The difference is actually cannot be explained that directly because the numbers are telling a story which do not give visibility on the underlying truth. What do I mean by that? The material cost increased. Okay, it could be derived from supplier change their prices, or you consumed more than you anticipated, or you have more scraps than you should have, or you have stocks that is not declared. Which one of those actually increased the overall material cost? Finance is responsible for explaining those in real time. However, the data never arrives in real time. Budgets are approved without visibility. What is actually going to happen is assumed, and you cannot feed that data with real time. All of those are discovered at the end of the month when you have the invoices come from suppliers, the payroll has been calculated, transferred to employees. All of the costs associated with the selling is distributed to all of different products. You have certain assumptions. However, those assumptions are rarely correct. You have like finance teams in the morning with a team meeting, afternoon aligning with operations, closing with auditors. They have different responsibilities for the business. They are responsible for compliance, they are responsible for the cash flow allocation, they are responsible for aligning with who actually makes those decisions in real time that drives the outcomes. So it's more a chaos where you need the most clarity in the business because finance is where the heart of the business occurs, the cash positioning, the allocation of the payment, receivables, out they standing for the receivables. If you have cash flow stress test, like what is going to happen in 3 months where I will be selling 10,000 of units compared to what I will be paying during that period, what will be the labor cost, what will be the utilities cost, because you cannot pay like your suppliers to your employees and utilities. You need to be able to allocate certain resources to finance those costs for the business. Where you are supposed to be like a magician, needs to know what is going to happen, anticipate all of those. What is actually required from you is anticipate all of the risks, allocate accordingly. You are managing risks and increasing opportunities with the right time, with the right allocation to solve the problems. But the allocation, even though you are responsible for those, usually made with operations team or procurement team. Procurement team can buy material which is really cheap at that point, can stock it, and you will be notified at the end of the month with the stock levels, which on the other hand requires certain cash allocation where you might say, we were supposed to have this amount during this month breakdown. And the conflict starts because at the end of the day, procurement try to optimize their costs by buying upfront in bulk, in cheap. However, they never calculate the stock carrying costs Moreover, what is associated for the carrying cost of those stocks? Because the finance might need to require additional financing equipments like interest for those allocations. They are responsible for managing the cash, while someone has, it's like a family. You are the uh, you are the provider of the family. On the other hand, you give the credit card to someone else where they do not have the overall positioning or understanding of the cash on hand, and they spend like a child. This is a really, really hard job. So you need to be able to consolidate all of those together, gain a financial truth, what is happening, and you need to be able to collaborate with different teams at the same time to analyze what their decisions looks like for the overall company finances. Main challenges, we have dived into some of the areas, but for the digital transformation, finance teams are struggling to quantify what is the return on investment for the digital initiatives, because it's not, digital transformation is not a one-time project. It's a strategy. You will be completing several initiatives, actions. However, those are not just solely solving one problem. You will be adding on top of each solution. So the return on investment actually cannot be quantified in a short term with exact truth. However, more in the midterm and long term. The long term increases or midterm increases cannot be divided into like the cost increase in the material. Is it related to increase in the material prices? Similar. Did we solve this problem with this initiative? Or what is the effect of investing on an operator performance feedback mechanism? Does it reduce only the labor cost? You increase the efficiency of your employees? No. You build on top of those. You build performance metrics. You increase the allocation, the planning of the labor for the related fields. However, those are managed with different teams like production or procurement or maintenance. And all of the data between these teams actually fragmented. You don't have a consolidated truth. What is the overall maintenance cost? Maybe maintenance team can give you that. However, you cannot get to the bottom of, is maintaining that compressor actually helps us for the overall capacity usage, because at the end of the day, every maintenance, every breakdown is a shortage of production, versus buying a new compressor actually reduce the overall breakdown, increase the production, and you cannot quantify exactly what does it look like for removing that friction for the maintenance team, because they will be maintaining less and less a new equipment versus an old equipment, and overall cost cannot be quantified by just, okay, this is how much we are going to get production. You also freed up maintenance workloads where you could allocate those maintenance time in a more critical equipment. Budgeting especially is really hard for financial teams, because everyone is requesting certain investment. They believe this is the constraint of the business. They need to be able to optimize either this year or next year. We need to have a new compressor. Why? Can you show me how much time you spent for maintaining those? What are the spare parts that we actually stock for these compressors? What are the overall carrying costs for us? What are the alternatives? How much capacity are we going to require from a new compressor? What will be the utilities cost reduction versus the current one? You don't even know what is the current consumption of your compressor in terms of utility. And you are making an assumption on the ROI payback period for those investments. Hidden waste shows as unexpected cost. You distribute the cost to all of the products by saying, okay, this is what is supposed to happen in terms of material cost, labor cost, utilities cost as direct production cost, and you have indirect production costs like intra-logistics, maintenance, overall consumption more than you anticipated. You need to be able to distribute those to each of the products. You have certain distribution keys in your ERP probably, but those are making assumptions. Those do not reflect what is really happening or where are the improvement opportunities are. You cannot back with the math for those kind of arguments. You need to be able to create financial model where you chase accountability. However, you are losing time by chasing with those in the spreadsheet instead of saving money. Your job is to save money for the business. And with digital transformation, we actually chase accountability with real-time shared truth where everyone is brought together to see, okay, this investment makes money for us in this period with certain assumptions as a baseline, because you cannot have exact amount. You will have minimum threshold and the maximum is basically infinite, because the thing you know currently is a function of what you know will be increasing exponentially with digital transformation. You'll be able to make sense of a lot of different aspects of the business. Let me give you one. What is the product cost for an assembly line where we have 200 employees? How can we distribute those? Basically, you need to be able to get the data for which products are produced for that day. You need to be able to understand who are working on that line for that day. You need to get their payment structure. Those are not always stable. There might be certain bonuses, certain incentives where you issued before, and you are calculating all of those at the end of the month. So you need to be able to collect in real time, distribute at the end of the day, because you are calculating all of those at the end of the month for the payroll, and you are assuming certain things. Basically, this operator is going to be working here. How can we validate that? Are you sure all of the factory plant managers are assigning according to plan? These are 200 people that I need to be working on. Okay, what if one of them got sick? What happens if one of them is on vacation? Someone needs to fill in, and your cost structure, what you assumed was linear or for certain skill set. Now it's not the reality. You assumed you are producing that product with 200 people. In real time, maybe it's 100 with 196 people. Those kind of discrepancies, not gaining the truth from real-time visibility, is where the improvement opportunities are, because we are making so much assumption about the business, especially for a finance team, because you cannot comprehend the data that is required to be able to make sense of that data. You need to be defined what is actually happened as a modeled data, so you can make decisions. Okay, these are the improvement opportunities, so investing in this area will decrease this cost. At the end of the day, we'll be able to have a return on investment around this payback period, like 6 months, 7 months at the earliest or at worst. So why do we have that challenge, the root causes? Basically, we touched upon some of the areas where the cost driver is not single entity. There are certain volatilities that actually affect the cost structure. There is at the core, there is 3 4 main challenges for the root causes. There is no shared financial operational data model. At core, this is the problem. Any operational data should be linked with the finances. How much labor I am consuming, how much energy I am consuming, how much material I am consuming. You need to be able to consolidate those from real-time traceability. If you don't have real-time traceability, you are always making assumptions on the moments that you took an observation. If you made an observation 3 years ago where you assumed there needs to be 200 people working on this, where the operation reduced the overall labor requirement by 5%, you are still assuming this product is being produced with 200 people. In reality, it's actually produced with 190 people. You need to be able to consolidate that data that you live, basically most of the time ERP, with operational technology systems. And that reconciliation is never easy. You cannot have all of the data flowing through your ERP system, because ERP cannot handle those. That is not how it's designed. Those are designed with transactional details, relationship diagrams between different tables, and you are allocating certain budgets, what is actual in a different table. You need to be able to consolidate all of those to gain the financial truth that you are looking for. The traceability problems from downtime, like how much time did we lose on that production? What is the cost? Even the downtime as a definition has different variances where you need to have alignment with the operation. What is downtime for you? Anytime less than 5 minutes? Is it downtime? Maybe they will say it's a performance problem because their truth is OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, and they will say anything less than 5 minutes is not a downtime, it's a performance problem, it's a minor stoppage. So we do not calculate though. Where you ask the maintenance team, what is the downtime? They will record everything that you are planning to produce. They will say rather than 45 minutes that the production team reported as a downtime, the maintenance team might say 80 minutes. In your reality, none of them considered that if they had a meeting, like legal or obligated meeting, like health and safety or any audit that where you didn't have any production, those are not calculated in neither of those neither of those teams. The production maintenance did not care if there was a meeting because they were not supposed to produce during that period. But as a financial controller, you say, we paid for 8 hours of labor. What we gained from the production is 6.5 hours. We lose 90 minutes. How can you correlate all of those when you don't even have alignment with the operations, with the procurement, with the maintenance team? You need to have a single source of truth for definition as well, where you link those with the cost associated, where this actually starts to bring together as a puzzle. Some of the shortages have direct effect on labor costs, some of them has direct effect on material costs. Like if you have a scrap as a loss, you will have labor cost as a direct cost, raw material as a direct cost, utilities as a direct cost, because you paid all of those transformation during that product goes through the production until you identify it as a scrap. The earlier that you catch those kind of problems, the minimum risk, minimum cost associated with those. So you need to be able to link the downtime as a shared truth, as an alignment of the losses, corresponding cost for those as a loss cost matrix, it's a matrix for you. And you need to be able to assign certain initiatives, give budget to solve those problems where you can see the profit impact, because the company is losing money from everywhere and you are the controller to stop that bleed. While all of these happen, we are still relying on human reporting because most of the OT data still comes as a human reporting. We are lagging on analytics tools. You don't have financial models that can actually predict the overall cash flow or your positioning against the payments received, which suppliers are the critical ones, which customers have a payment problem, where you are still looking on the rear view mirror to solve a challenge that's happening in real time. Someone else is driving the car, you are looking back, and the company asks you, why are we going as we desire, or why did we get into that hole? Those are not how you could actually steer the overall business. Those are the challenges that need certain collaboration with different people, different value realizers. Because at the end of the day, the operations happens in real time. The finance is responsible for the cash, yes, but those are the outcomes. You are responsible for someone else driving. How does the data help actually? What can be changed during that transformation? With MaestroHub, for example, what we call as process cost mapping, we, rather than having a static assumption of how the cost should be distributed, we turn that into activity based, where we are collecting the real time events from sources, getting those signals into an information and financial logic. Each of the costs associated with the production, as we mentioned, there are certain direct costs, certain indirect costs. You need to have, at the end of the day, make assumption, because you cannot associate every loss to every product. Like a maintenance problem, you had a stoppage for 15 minutes. How are you going to allocate to that product? That's not realistic, because that was not the product's fault. All of the product that has been produced until a previous breakdown, maybe you had a different breakdown. The breakdown that you have is a sensor malfunction, where currently your breakdown is related to changing a bearing. Or are you going to distribute all of the cost with mean time between failure for certain event types where I find the similarities? Maybe it took 5 years. Are you going to distribute all of those to previous years as well? You have to make assumption. You have to be able to say, okay, I make this assumption that every time I close the month, if any breakdown happens, I will distribute to every product that has ever produced prior to that, before I close the month. It needs to be synchronized with the OEE, scrap, energy use, with the cost centers, and the overall P&L structure. The operation is never responsible, almost never responsible for the financial things. They are responsible for the KPIs, they are responsible for the scrap rate, uptime, utility costs, utility usage per product, sustainability. This happens, but they are not responsible for the financial impact. You are responsible for the financial impact. And you need to be able to create a single financial truth, what I call as a digital financial twin, on what is happening and how you can model the truth of the business with the finance. With this, the CFO actually gains a live profitability cockpit on what is the actual cost of the real production. What is the real cost of that production? Any CFO, when we engage in those projects, starts with, this cannot be done, we cannot calculate this. Steve Jobs actually had a great video on that. Before they moved to their factory, they were doing all of those adjustments for the accounting part. They were like 2%, 3%, adjusting the cost according to what was not unseen. They were distributing all of the costs that not associated with the product with a certain distribution key. Steve Jobs actually asked, why are we doing that? And they said, it's always how it's done. Until they moved to the new factory and able to track what is happening in the factory. Until you gain a visibility, transparency, a traceability of the production or the operational truth, you cannot gain all of those. Once you have that, you can have ROI in real time. You can have automated variance analysis. You can say, okay, based on this, what is our forecasting? Powered by the actual production flow. Because you assume certain products will be delivered in certain areas where you assumed you will have a certain price range where you will be selling to certain customers. Those never happens, by the way. You assumed a lot, but the reality is that variances for the forecast is actually drifted while you are not even aware why it happened. Now, with this digital transformation, the finance team doesn't have to wait for data. It just leads with it. They say, okay, this is how much are we going to make based on the production, and these are the customers that we are going to collect, and this is the risk that they are going to pay in time in full, because most of the customers might, you assume like 96% accuracy on the payment day. Maybe your customer is going bankrupt. You cannot collect your payments. They might have a financial struggle. You have to become actually the orchestrator, that the rainmaker, finding the right alternative when there is a crisis happen. As long as you are someone else driving the car and you are looking just from the rear window, you cannot see what is going to happen. You first need to take control on what is happening, gain a financial truth. You need to be able to move to the driver's seat. After that point, with certain experience and the data that is being collected, you can forecast what is going to happen. You can anticipate the traffic that is jammed in 500 meters. You can get navigation data for those. What is going to happen in 500 meters? You can see with the things that you were not even aware. You can consolidate a number of different indicators for the market while you are drowning in the what is the memories of the past. What does it look like for a financial controller team? First thing first, digital transformation as a digital transformation in quote unquote is not a project. You will have certain projects. Those are the steps for transforming the business. And if someone asks what for the CFO, why are we investing? Because it's strategy. You need to be able to gain control by investing in those areas where we don't see. You need to get the data traceability and monitor what's happening. If you don't have your eyes in the operation, then someone will fill in the blanks for you. For the project side, the immediate results. First of all, you are getting the cost drivers as a visibility for the cost drivers. No more blind budgeting approvals. If someone comes in, we need to be invest in double roller because we are going to be reducing 2.5% of overall downtime. And your automatic response will be, it doesn't make sense if it's over 150K because the financing term for that equipment will have more than 24 months of payback period based on our direct labor cost, utilities cost, and anything you reduce over 150K as an alternative is not feasible for us because we cannot get that investment with the right equipment. If you have less than 100K, that might happen. Rather than fighting it, I requested 150, finance give me 110. You are actually aligning all of the teams and gaining a financial truth for different departments. For the midterm, once you gain the losses, the operation team can actually drive the ROI for you. Because in one or two quarters, when you have enough data, you can reduce the unplanned operational expenditure more than 10 to 15%. Anything that you allocate as an overhead can be reduced because overhead means there is a loss in the production, there is a loss in the operation. Overhead distribution. I love that term. I love that. You can actually reduce 10 to 15% in 1 to 2 quarters. For the long term, the company actually transforms and the finance transforms it as well. You turn into a strategic enabler rather than reporting, consolidating, positioning. You are allocating capital dynamically based on live plant performance. Anything that comes, you might say, that doesn't make sense. What are our alternatives? Can we get a better quote on that? Can we solve it more efficiently? Because anything more than this budget is not feasible for us. Rather than having assumptions, that doesn't make sense. So what is next for the financial teams? You are going to be transforming the business with digital transformation initiatives, and it's like what I call digital financial team. It's like a predictive finance. You continuously get the data from a single source of truth like MaestroHub, feeds models contextualized information that actually forecast cash flow because you modeled those, your customers, their payment pattern, how much volume you are going to assign those, the risk associated with each of those actually live in your CRM system. You can consolidate all of those into one operational truth. You can see the cost volatility rather than having ERP assuming overall rolling average for the last 12 months. You can have alternative scenario planning like I would like to change our cost structure for the material for the replacing. So rather than taking the overall 12-month average, rolling average, I would like to use the latest quotes, latest numbers for that related material for our financial modeling. Or you might even say, I am assuming based on the forecast indicators that the market show, the cost of that product is going to increase. So we need to be able to model that our cost structure to be able to replace that part. You bought $100 for that product. Maybe it's going to be 110 when you reorder it. So if you sell according to 100, according to your profit, your cost margins, like I'm going to have a profit margin of 50%. Okay. At the end of the day, when you are reselling that product, you are paying more and more. So, and you are trying to understand where the erosion of the profits come from. You are not even replacing your own product because your model did not even assume that it's going to increase. And the cost of that product is actually was linear as a rolling average from ERP. The value controller actually evolved from a budget reviewer to a performance strategist, guiding investments through the live operational truth. From the data collected from procurement, maintenance, operation, logistics, everything can be synchronized and have one financial truth. Business evolve with the strategy, with the digital investment, definitely. But as a summary, what happens? All of this podcast as a summary, as a one sentence. When finance stops looking backward, the whole organization starts moving forward. Thank you.